I'm back with a quick tip. Today we're going to talk about the other element that controls depth of field. Most everybody talks about one of the elements that controls depth of field, but not the other element. And in today's quick tip, you're going to learn what that is. First though, Happy New Year 2020. It is crazy that 1990 was 30 years ago. That is making me feel very old. Also though, a bit of trivia for this world, 2020 is not the first year in a new decade, it's the last year in the previous decade. So everyone that's out there saying, Happy New Decade, or it's crazy what happened last decade, let's see what happens this decade. Technically, the new decade doesn't start until next year, because there never was a year zero. Anyways, go mess with your friends. Go tell them they're silly. It's not the new decade yet. This is the last year of the last decade. Secondly, I kinda took December off. Well, not off. I worked a ton in December, but I was photographing and then I had a bunch of family events and I only made like one video in December. But I did spend December thinking of you and thinking of this channel and how I can bring the most value to you in 2020. I'm gonna make a whole video about my goals for this channel and what I plan on for this channel, but the thesis of it really is more videos consistently. So in general, there's gonna be a lot more videos on this channel in 2020. So subscribe below and hit the like button on this video because it helps a ton. And let's get to quick tip number 2. All right, today's quick tip is about depth of field and specifically how to control depth of field. I'm gonna make a much longer video on aperture and all the ins and outs of aperture, but most people would say something along the lines of you control depth of field with aperture. The lower the aperture number, bigger hole, the less depth of field you'll get. And the higher the aperture number, smaller hole, the more depth of field you'll get. And they're right, but there is one other element that also controls depth of field. And most people don't talk about it. If you know it before I say it, put it in the comments right now. The second element that controls depth of field is the distance between you and your subject. With the same exact aperture setting, the closer you get to your subject, the less depth of field you will have. When the further away you get from your subject, the more depth of field you'll have. It's harder to see on a big scale. So today we're gonna do a small scale representation of this, but realize this scales up. Okay, hang on. All right, big old ruler and a bag of Skittles. Technically, I don't need the Skittles to show this off. But everything's more fun with Skittles. All right, I'm gonna get them lined up on the ruler. This is too many Skittles. I need like half this many. All of you. Perfect. I'm gonna take this camera that has a 90mm macro lens on it, and we're gonna be at f4.0, 1/200th of a second, and ISO 3200. Now I'm gonna focus on this green Skittle right at the 29-inch mark, but I'm gonna be very close to the Skittle. There it is. There's like no depth of field. Maybe a 1/4 inch either way, maximum. But now, keeping the exact same settings, so my aperture, which controls depth of field, does not change. I'm gonna move further back from the Skittle. So I'm gonna get back here a little bit, and okay, I only moved like maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet back, and just by doing that, oh yeah, I've got at least 1.5 inches, 2 inches of depth of field. But if I get really close, there's only like a little 1/4 inch bit that's in focus. So the closer I get, the less depth of field. The further away I get, the more depth of field, even though I didn't change my aperture. Now the same concept scales up. So if I'm shooting maybe 2 people and they're 50 feet away from me, I could probably get away with something like f2 or really even lower, like 1.6 or 1.4. And being 50 feet away from them, there might be 2 feet-ish of depth of field that as long as they're in it, they'll both be in focus. But as I get closer to them, that depth of field is gonna go down and down and down and down to the point where if I'm this far away from them, there's gonna be a little tiny sliver, maybe 1 inch or 2, that is my depth of field. And sometimes you'll even see that where if someone isn't perfectly straight on you, they're turned a little bit, you'll focus on the front eye and the back eye is even a little blurry because you don't have enough depth of field to even get both eyes in focus. And that's it. That's your quick tip for today. Aperture is not the only thing that controls depth of field. Your distance from you to your subject also controls depth of field. The closer you are, the less depth of field. The further away you are, the more depth of field. Same aperture, just the distance changes. So yeah, keep that in mind next time you go out shooting, and it's gonna help you out to be thinking of that. If I get closer, I gotta bump my aperture number to maintain the same amount of depth of field. It's so good. I hope this helped you guys out. I hope that knowing that there's multiple aspects to depth of field helps you next time you go out shooting. And if it did help you, hit that like button. And don't be greedy with these quick tips. Share them with somebody. Because if you learn something new, I bet your friend could too. Share it. And subscribe, because more quick tips are coming this year. Oh. I don't want to catch that one anyways.